I do believe that we are ready for the good Senator John Horhn, District 26. Hinds County, Madison Counties. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Paul.
You need to catch your breath there, sir. Senate Labor Committee and Vice Chair, Senate Tourism Committee, et cetera, et cetera.
Senate Housing Committee and Vice Chair of Veterans and Military Affairs.
Any of your bills that will become law coming up Mondays? Mondays. It is Monday. Yeah, it is Monday.
Not any bills, maybe some amendments.
We had around a little over 2,100 bills. I've got that here somewhere. We had over 2,100 bills. Of those, this makes the people feel happy, only 225 became law. But that's still quite a bit. 225 made it through the process. Many of those become law on Monday. One of the ones, just to let you people know, because if you're thinking, all right, what am I going to do over the weekend? Here's my suggestion. If you have a squatted truck, squatted vehicle, I had to remember the what they call these. If you have a squatted vehicle this weekend, I would take care of that, because either fix it or park it, because if you don't, you may not be able to see those blue lights behind you, because as of Monday, if you're driving a squatted vehicle pertinent to House Bill 349, you are in violation, and you will get a ticket. You don't have a squatted vehicle, do you?
Not this weekend, no.
Not this weekend. One of the things I do want to talk to you about, you and I have been doing this thing back and forth, visiting for a long, long time. Never before, John, has crime from kids this young. And it transcends all of ethnicities, really all household incomes. I know it's probably more as far as African Americans and low income, but it's you turn on the news and sometimes you see it. It doesn't matter. It could be somebody who's, their dad's leaving them a trust fund. So what do we do about that? Are we? And I think I mentioned in some of the promotional stuff, how do we really get down to the root of this without inviting some of these parents in into any narrative or any discussion at all? And because I had one county sheriff, and I mentioned this yesterday or the day before, one county sheriff I was talking to over the last several days says, Paul, you don't realize how bad it is, because if you're looking for the parents in some of these homes to do something about it, the parents are just as bad, and they're not going to do it. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts on this as a long-time legislator?
Well, about 6 or 7 years ago, I got $500,000 to do some studies, and it dealt with crime in the capital city. But I think that the lessons we learned from that are just as pertinent if you're talking about rural Mississippi or urban New York. What we found was that in the schools, there were early warning signs that there was a problem with this child: absenteeism, tardiness, not being fully engaged. And those warning signs were told by us, that we were told that we needed to take heed to that, because those are precursors to other behaviors that may show up. And I have a lot of friends who are mental health counselors and provide mental health services. I think this is a mental health problem.
Yeah,
I really do. And I think that unless we engage the parents, we're not going to get to the root of it. My friends who are counselors tell me that they not only counsel children, they counsel the parents and find out that the parents have just as many problems as the kids. So I think we've got to address this as a mental health issue. I think that we've got to look at it from not just getting guns out of kids' hands, because guns are very accessible in our society right now, and I don't see us doing a whole lot about that, just based on our recent past. So we've got to address it from a mental health standpoint, and also looking at these kids. They're troubled kids. Most of them have some problems, and those problems have got to be addressed. And then I think a lot in my neck of the woods, a lot of these kids don't have any hope. They feel as if No one cares about them, that they're out there on their own. They have peer pressures that they're having to deal with. And so I think we've got to address those kinds of things.
It is amazing, though, because, and again, when you have no father figure or no structure in the family with a dad and a mom to get both sides of it, it's just biological. You can argue all you want to, but a single mom is a struggle on her hand. A single dad, it's a struggle on his hands. And if you have a parent who says, when you were young, John, why are you going to go to school? You're going to be suppressed out there. Why are you going to do this or that? If you're a poor white kid from a dirt farm, why, the corporate types are going to eat you up. Why are you even going to go to college? Why the hell do you go to school? Stay in the coal mine, stay on the field. If there's no hope. Yeah. If you're in charge of a business and you tell your salespeople, I'm going to give you a talk this morning, there's no hope when you go out there. If you have a coach who tells you there's no hope when you hit the field, what do you think the outcome's going to be?
Yeah. Well, a person without hope is a dangerous individual because if they don't have anything to lose, then they approach you as if you have nothing to lose too, and they'll treat you likewise.
When you say this about guns, and we understand from some of the interviews we do, most of these guns are coming from kids breaking into cars. And it's dumb to me to know that anybody who has a gun is going to leave it in their vehicle overnight or anytime. That's crazy. That's senseless to do this. But that's where they're getting most of these guns, through break-ins, whether in the home or in the cars.
They're doing that, but they're also getting them from gun shows. And a lot of what they do, according to what police officers tell us.
You think a 13-year-old is getting it from a gun show?
I don't know. A 13-year-old is getting
15-year-old.
But what we're finding is that
is an 18-year-old getting from a gun show?
A lot of guys who are felons who can't go into a gun show will get their girlfriends to go in and buy the guns. Ooh. And then they put them on the streets.
So you know that for a fact?
Police officers tell us that for a fact.
Where do they get the money for this? Some of this weaponry that they're buying, we're talking in the several $100s, if not several $1,000s.
Well, and that's the question I can't answer. I don't know where the money's coming from. It's probably other illicit activity, and as a result, they're getting the money from somewhere. And
how do you stop that? How do you stop that? And the other part of that too is, when you and I first started talking about crime, or just had interviews, and we didn't talk too much about crime when your hair was not gray and my hair was there back in the old days, but we didn't have kids 13, 15, 16 years old going out there shopping for the car that some guy has said, if you'll bring me in a Mercedes this model, here's what I'll give you for it.
Well, I think we've clearly got to address in Jackson a gang problem.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. Let's take a quick break. Okay. Back in a moment.
Okay.
Senator John Horhn, District 26, Hinds County, Madison Counties. Back in a moment with more. John Horhn, Senator, Mississippi District 26, Hinds, Madison County. Brian and Gluckstead. John Horhn is repeating the same Democrat talking points on where criminals get guns. Senator Horhn, have you been to a gun show lately? Any FFL dealer is still required to do background checks and follow all federal and state firearm laws, including straw purchases, which are still illegal at gun shows. That's the girlfriend loophole you mentioned. Minors must be accompanied by an adult. Brian, I haven't been to a gun show in ages. Have you?
It's been a while.
Yeah. I do a lot of gun shows, and I never see black ladies at all. I do see young black men. I am 70, so everybody is young to me. So I understand that one.
Yeah,
on guns,
I'm just going by what police officers have shared with me.
Well, if they do that, then the young lady is she's illegal, and she could be thrown in jail for this, for a straw purchase. Right. So, all right, we're going to talk about gangs. And do you think they're, certainly in the capital city area, more prevalent now than ever?
Yeah, I think so. They're not, they might call themselves the Bloods or the Crips or what have you, but they're not directly tied to a gang in Chicago or a gang in California.
I got you. They're not paying dues.
They like the colors. They like the name, and so a lot of times they'll adopt those monikers as a way to sort of identify, but there's no direct correlation. What we're told by law enforcement is that they have an organized criminal activity going on that constitutes to them what a gang is all about.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more activity. We saw that in the study a few years ago, and we're getting that information firsthand from law enforcement officials.
Have you recently, I would love to do this, and I'm not sure if anybody who's talking about doing a study committee has done this, sit down and talked to maybe some 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds who are repeat offenders, maybe spending some time in jail, juvenile delinquents, and just talk to them. How did they get here? What's their mindset?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had conversations with ex-offenders, not folks who are currently offenders, but folks who've been in the system. And there's a peer-to-peer, several peer-to-peer programs where folks who've been through the system are trying to dissuade other young people from going through the system. And sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not.
John, that's got to be hard, though. I mean, it's got to be hard for them to get back and say, all right, I'm on the wagon now. It just doesn't work that easy.
Well, and the other thing is jail is a rite of passage for a lot of these
Bingo.
kids.
That's one of the most disheartening things you can say, but it's true.
Yeah.
You're absolutely true. If you sit down and talk to some of them, they will say, I expect to go to jail. I understand I'm going to go to jail. That's just part of me and my life.
Yeah. My brother's in jail. My daddy went to jail. It's just, as you say, part of life. Yeah. And so we've got to offer up some alternatives to that give these folks hope that they can have a better life. And right now, too many of our young people don't feel like they're going to have much of a life.
When you do, I mean, if you ask me, and again, I'm probably the last person to ask about this, but how are you going to change this? You have to realize, number one, there are two different things. You got to change what you can change today. It's like there are two different things. Number one, you change what you can change today. More incarceration, if you have to build more jails, no matter how young they are, they have to have consequences. They have to understand there's consequences. They got to be more police. If we can spend billions upon billions of dollars and wasteful stuff, we can afford more police. That would be the number one thing that this president should have done. We need more cameras. I understand we're doing that now in some areas where they're heavily, a lot of break-ins. They're starting to put more cameras. Cameras are cheap. Cameras are hard to not convict somebody in a court of law when you see the video. Yeah, well, and then secondly, let me just finish this. I'll have you. Secondly, on the long term, on the generational, on the culture, after we get these people off the street, anybody out there committing crimes. Then secondly, we need a new curriculum in school. Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand algebra and I understand mathematics and everything else is going to make your life better if you know what's going on. But if you never get there, if you're going to wind up in jail, we need a curriculum that addresses interaction with law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And the kids understand this. This could save their life or save their freedom. We need a curriculum that shows you the consequences between misdemeanors and felonies. They need to understand what's going to happen when they get out of that classroom.
I don't disagree with anything you just said, Paul. A lot of these kids don't really understand the consequences of what they're doing. You know, they've been playing video games. They see a lot of violence on television. It's just a matter of course for them. It's part of their everyday life. So they don't understand the gravity of some of their actions. And I believe, though, that as it relates to the technology, we got to use more technology. But somebody's got to be looking at those cameras. Someone's got to be monitoring those cameras. You can't just put up a camera and expect it to solve the crime problem. It's got to be used as a tool to help you solve crime. But yeah, the immediate thing is we've got to get this thing under control. Anytime the average citizen is afraid to stay in their house and they're afraid to leave their house, we got a problem.
When you hear of an innocent child just outside playing before they go in for supper, being shot, or in the bedroom sleeping and they're shot, it's just it's so disheartening.
Yep. And the other thing is that there once, if you can say this, there was a code. You didn't mess with little old ladies. You didn't do stuff that would endanger their lives. You didn't do things that would endanger a child's life. Now it's indiscriminate. People don't seem to care who gets caught in the line of fire, and that's very, very dangerous.
I'm telling you, you think it's bad now. If we don't stop this, and if we don't get control of this illegal immigration one way or the other, the gangs that we have now are going to be nothing like the gangs we'll have in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, and we've got to stamp out the gangs in prisons, too, because that's feeding a lot of what's going on out here on the streets.
Capital Project was a big topic the last time we were on, the last several times we were on. The police a little bit more organized there. There have been some arrests. Your evaluation and analysis of that.
I think that Capitol Police has helped to calm things down. The addition of those sworn officers that are on the street that are responsible for a certain section of the capital city to police has done a really good job of calming things down. They've expanded their territory a little bit, but the biggest thing is that JPD is working more cohesively with Capitol Police now. They're acting more as a team than as adversaries, which is what I think it was the first couple of years that Capitol Police got beefed up. But there's still some more work to be done, and we still have resources that are needed by JPD. They still are down on short of officers. I think they've got about 250 sworn officers on the street right now.
Yeah.
Capitol Police is right around 200, if I remember correctly. We probably need a 650 person force to be effective in Jackson, just given the people and the level of crime that we're seeing.
We've got a break coming up in a moment or two, but let me start the discussion on this one. The zoo that we had in Jackson was the finest in the state of Mississippi, and if we continue the progress we had made year to year, let's say the first 10 or 15 years the zoo was there, it probably would have been just one of the most magnificent in the entire South. But we've gone the other way. And is it time to shut that down and just admit that, just like the stadium, got to tear it down and move on? Or is there something can be done with that?
That's a real good question, Paul. And I think at this point, unless something is done soon, we won't have a zoo in fairly short order. The conditions of the animals, of the facilities are really poor. We had an opportunity to move the zoo a few years ago. I think that window's shut as far as that particular location we're talking about, putting over where LaFleur's Park is now. And it made a lot of sense because you've got the Natural Science Museum, you've got the Children's Museum.
And we'll continue this on the other side. I want to talk more about that in the final segment we have here. But you are right. To me, it was just a God-given opportunity to move it there. And along with all of the other attractions that are in that general area. More on that. Senator John Horhn, District 26, Hinds County, Madison Counties. Kirk Allen, speaking of attractions, will take you to the Mississippi Aquarium with some summer family trips planned there and a lot of things happening. We'll talk about that. Back with more next. Final segment, John Horhn, Senator, Mississippi District 26, Hinds County and Madison Counties. And an interesting response back to the gangs and everything else. And I think this is in response to me seeing we need to introduce maybe some curriculums in schools. 601 said, and so we got to put responsibility on teachers at schools? The answer is yes. As far as imparting knowledge, I think that's kind of their bailiwick. Back in this parting thing here, when is the mayor's term over, and is he planning on running again?
The election is next May for the primary, and he's indicated that he's running again.
You think the people are happy with 2 terms of this guy?
I think the vast majority of Jacksonians are disappointed with the level of progress we're seeing in the city right now. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the zoo. The zoo is kind of an emblem of what else is going on in the city.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of blight and deterioration happening in our city. Excuse me, and it does not appear that this administration is paying a lot of attention to that, to the point where they're doing something about it. It's almost as if we're watching the withering of Jackson, and I think that folks in general, based on some research that we're doing, about 84% of people think that Jackson is headed in the wrong direction.
If I can't imagine those other 20% what they're drinking. I want to go back to what you just said about the Capitol Police, because in a way this is a bigger thing than maybe you even realized. Is if we did the zoo the same way, if Mr. Lumumba would have done this the same way, if the Black Caucus, if the leaders in the House and Senate would all have done, if there was more trust factor in understanding we're not doing this to gain a lead, to put you back in chains, to, as Joe Biden would say, or to do anything that would cut your freedoms. We're doing this so all of us can live better, and all of us will be safer. Then when the Jackson Police Department realized, hey, you know what? They do want us to work together. But there's that trust factor. I don't know how you get it, but if the mayor of the city had that trust factor, he would have met with the President Trump when he was in town for the civil rights opening of the museums, and that's another story. But that was a missed opportunity. And my understanding is because he did not want to move it out of that blighted area over there. The zoo.
Yeah. I've heard that. I've heard that.
So what do you got?
Well, I've heard that this administration would rather see it rot and wither away than to have it moved, say, to East Jackson, Northeast Jackson.
But they were both in Jackson, weren't they? I mean, they're both in the city limits of Jackson.
Well, you and I understand the logic of that, Paul, but some folks may not.
So for the good of the whole, he was ready to just let it rot where it is.
Well, I can't speak for the mayor. I can only talk about what I see. Mm-hmm. And I see what was once a great attraction. It was at one time, I think, the number 2 attraction besides the Vicksburg National Military Park is the number 1 attraction in the state. You
know how bad this is, John? When you have somebody like Hattiesburg, which is riding high right now, as a matter of fact, they're working together in Hattiesburg. Our hometown SuperTalk, Hattiesburg's looking good. They come up with their zoo. The zoo is clean. The zoo's looking good. And all of a sudden they announce, we're going to put a water park in the zoo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you come back and the mayor, if I'm the mayor, I'm looking, I'm a failure. I mean, look what's happening under my watch. That would be enough for me. I think it would be enough for you. What is the mistrust from someone like a mayor of a major city in the South that would not take the opportunities that are afforded him?
Well, you know, our relationships are very, very complicated in Mississippi, and a lot of it, as you have rightly pointed out, revolves around a lack of trust. Black folks don't trust white folks. White folks don't trust black folks. Rich folks don't trust poor folks. Poor folks don't trust the rich. So, you know, we've got to come together in this city and in this state if we're going to pull Mississippi out of the doldrums that it's in. Now, folks say, oh, we're better than we've ever been in terms of economic development. It's not seeping down to every corner of the community. And that's our challenge, is how do we spread prosperity around to where everybody can dip their bucket in and enjoy some of that prosperity.
Yeah, but here's my counter on that one, and I don't want to push back and make you mad, but those people, regardless of race, ethnicity, if they're vegan or meat eaters, they gotta have some skin in the game as far as that bucket. They got to be willing to hold that bucket, to work that bucket, to just be as proficient as anybody on the other side of the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they just want handouts, and you can't do that.
Well, I think that's an outlier, Paul. I don't think that everybody in the black community or in Jackson.
I didn't say the
is
black
looking
community.
for a
I'm just saying anybody.
Yeah.
Teach a man to fish.
Right.
And
you can
you
fish for
can use
life.
that analogy.
You can
Right. That's
fish for life.
exactly right. But we can go on and on. It's always good to have you on, though. It's always a good, energetic conversation. We thank you, my